Netflix is quietly leaving millions on the table, and this record-breaking 97% RT fantasy masterpiece is proof. The streaming service boom has been a historic step forward for what audiences are looking to and consuming for entertainment today. With so many options to choose from and so many services cranking out shows and movies almost every week, audiences are bombarded with choices. However, one choice always stands out, namely because it was one of the first major services to offer streaming films and shows of its kind. Netflix is one of the most important streaming services of today for its influence over modern entertainment, and where it could go in the future. However, one of its most recent hits, K-Pop Demon Hunters, is proving that Netflix might need to look in a new direction for the future of streaming. Netflix has developed the model that so many streaming services follow today. However, in terms of the theatrical release game, Netflix is falling behind a bit. Platforms like Amazon Prime and Apple Plus have begun to give their original films full releases, netting in a decent profit and notoriety that'll help keep the movies in the public consciousness for longer. Netflix has somewhat unsuccessfully tested the waters with this idea before, but K-Pop Demon Hunters was recently released into theaters a month after its release on the service. Somehow, it became one of the most successful films of the weekend, netting a very hefty profit. Now, Netflix is left with the decision of how to proceed in the future, with so many subscribers begging for more theatrical runs like that. Netflix paved the way for streaming services. In today's world of entertainment, streaming services seem to be the prevailing dominant force. While still rising in popularity, streaming really hit its boom in 2020 due to the lockdown, forcing audiences to look for entertainment from the comfort of their own home. One of these dominant streaming services was, of course, Netflix. Interestingly enough, Netflix started all the way back in 1997 as a video mailing service, where customers could basically rent movies and shows by mail. These would usually be DVDs or V/H/S, and it was successful. However, they really struck gold once they took their services to streaming a decade later. Now, audiences can find movies and shows to watch and enjoy from home. This practice grew and grew, becoming even bigger once Netflix started making its own entertainment in-house. Netflix is now one of the biggest entertainment platforms in the entire world. However, a particular business strategy of theirs is causing some serious loss that audiences are begging to be fixed. For years, the prevailing ideal formula for streaming was to release all the episodes on the same day. In practice, it's a bit unceremonious for the show or film, but it created a binging culture which made these streaming services so successful in the first place. However, as more services were getting on Netflix's level over the years, the idea of binging culture drifted away. Audiences missed the classic style of an episode a week, building anticipation between storied segments. While Netflix sticks to this way of creating entertainment, other streaming services have moved away. Shows like The Boys, Only Murders in the Building, The Mandalorian, WandaVision and more were some of the first major streaming shows to leave that formula behind to stay in the public zeitgeist for longer. Netflix chose not to pursue that, maintaining its classic format. However, they have finally begun to open up about these new ideas, but in an oddly middling way. Instead of releasing their entire show once or one episode a week, they're choosing to release parts of seasons on specific dates. All of that is to say that Netflix has a hard time getting out of its own way. Most of these shows are already going to be successful and iconic, so there's not necessarily any harm, but audiences have been begging for a weekly release schedule for so long. Netflix's suspected reluctance to further refine its formula is also evident in its movies. For the most part, Netflix's vast collection of original movies has never been seen in a theater. Movies like Red Notice, Don't Look Up, and Carry On show a wide variety and range of Netflix, but none of them have been shown in theaters nationwide. Other streaming services, such as Apple Plus and its film F1, decided to release in theaters before putting it on streaming. Currently, F1 is one of the highest-earning blockbusters of the year so far. Brad Pitt puts in another incredible performance, while the movie maintains a classically enjoyable racing atmosphere for the modern day. This film not only succeeded financially in theaters, but it will also succeed on streaming platforms. Netflix has this same opportunity with plenty of its films and projects, and yet audiences rarely ever get the chance to see these films in theaters. Netflix missed out on major hits. Some movies were luckily seen in the light of the projector, namely Glass Onion, A Knives Out Mystery, Martin Scorsese's The Irishman and K-pop Demon Hunters. In the case of Glass Onion and The Irishman, the films bombed at the box office despite glowing reviews. At first glance, it can be assumed that they bombed due to low interest. Instead, it's due to the fact that Netflix put both movies in limited theaters. For around the length of only 1 week, audiences would get the opportunity to see movies they'd be excited to see, but didn't know they were even getting the opportunity to shine on the silver screen. At the same time of release, the films also premiered on Netflix, killing any extra buzz these movies could have gotten if they weren't already readily available. Netflix shot itself in the foot by trying to straddle the line between theatrical release and streaming release. While the numbers looked great on streaming, both The Irishman and Glass Onion were reportedly box office bombs for their years. One movie that has been able to break Netflix's mold despite the restrictions of release was K-pop Demon Hunters. The title is as wild and fun as the premise of K-pop stars by day, musical demon hunting assassins by night. The movie is not only a visual and storytelling ride, but it's also packed with tons of catchy songs that the younger audience has become addicted to over the summer. K-pop Demon Hunters is one of the biggest Netflix hits of recent years, even topping the top spot of highest viewed film on Netflix, taking the position previously held by Red Notice. The reason this is relevant to the discussion of Netflix in movie theaters is that they recently announced a sing-along edition of the movie would be shown in theaters. To the possible surprise of Netflix, it became one of the highest-earning movie releases of the weekend. In a world filled with re-releases and anniversary showings, many movies have returned to theaters without so much as a blip on anyone's radar. Despite being released over a month before its mini-theatrical run, K-pop Demon Hunters still managed to take the top spot at the box office. It makes a lot of sense, considering how audiences all over the world enjoyed the movie so much, including its catchy songs. However, for it to be so financially successful was a huge shock.